I remember when I had to play with lungs in the pathology lab, and I just thinking about it, I remember the smell. I remember the smell. It's such a pungent smell, and you just can't. I'm just getting a whiff of it. I'm just getting a whiff of it right now. Whew. Welcome back to another episode of the WazaMedia podcast. My name is JR. I am the CEO of this awesome company, and I'm here today excited to talk with Gina LaBorde. Gina, thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, JR. Thank you.
And we have a former guest of the show, Dr. Daisy Shu, to thank for connecting us together. So thank you, Dr. Shu. Thank you, Daisy, for bringing us together.
Thank you, Daisy.
So Gina, for our audience that doesn't know you, we want to, with all of our guests, we like to ask our audience to tell a little bit about their story, because at WazaMedia, we believe in the power of storytelling. Everyone has a great story to tell, and I'm sure you have a great story to tell, and also about your organization, which we'll get to in a little bit later. But first, can we hear a little bit about your story?
Sure. Well, I'm Gina LaBorde, and I'm originally from Louisiana, where I happen to be right now. And I have a background in design. I did some teaching of design, and I also worked for LSU Medical School, where I did all of the graphics for the whole university. Then done some different marketing things. I worked for a marketing company that promoted Coca-Cola music festivals, things like that, grassroots marketing. And then at LSU, then I moved to the Department of Biochemistry and Pharmacology, where I helped develop the Photoshop for Scientists and PowerPoint for Scientists class. Then we had a little hurricane called Katrina. Then I was the director in Baton Rouge, was in exile to Baton Rouge for a little while for two publications, 225 magazine, which is like a lifestyle magazine, and then a Baton Rouge Business Report. So I was in New Orleans. I did some work for Spotify, being a campus ambassador and an influencer, and also for a restaurant group that Susan Spicer owned. We did some social media for food, and she's actually the character that was based on the HBO series Treme. She's the main chef that the character was based on. So then my husband and I decided to move to Washington, D.C. after all of this time. And we both got jobs there, and we absolutely love the area. And right now, I am the marketing and communications manager for the American Society for Investigative Pathology.
You have quite the history, Gina, from being out in the Louisiana area, dealing with hurricanes. So you probably have a taste in crisis communications, done some marketing, and now you're working out in the DC area here. So quite a large range of experience. And I am interested about how you enjoyed your time with Spotify. That's pretty neat.
Well, it was great. I grew up with music. Both of my parents were in media. My mother was in television. My dad was in broadcasting. So we constantly listened to music. And as soon as I ditched my iPod, I was so excited about Spotify. And I was like, I have got to find a way to work with this company. So I did. And I kept asking, how can I get involved? And so I was able to be a campus influencer, and they had several contests that were like, you make playlists and then share. That was kind of the beginning of my social media start. So we had contests for Bonnaroo, and I actually won one of the contests there. So anything you're passionate about is always fun. And I remember I learned about social media when I was in grad school at LSU. And this guy told me there's this thing called the Facebook. I was like, okay. So I started, and I didn't really play around with it. I always loved computers and did old school like AOL and ICQ and all these things. And then after I started using it for a little, I said, well, wait a minute, this is really interesting. You can really promote things with this. And so I tried to get LSU. At the time I was working at the medical school, but they were like, this is not going to do anything. This is just playing around. I was like, no, you don't understand. I think you really can make this a very, not only educational and storytelling tool, but you can really promote yourself and what you're doing. And so that's kind of how I got my start there.
You mentioned ICQ, and that brings me back to my early internet days. And I just got a flashback about AOL Instant Messenger, and then the dark days of MySpace.
Oh, MySpace, yes.
Oh, those were dark times. But if it wasn't for MySpace, I wouldn't have gotten into coding. I don't code
Yeah.
any websites anymore. It's drag and drop these days, and
Mhm.
WordPress makes it a lot easier and using other websites. But man, there's a lot of. I also remember. I don't know if you use this as well. Do you remember the blog site Zanga with an X?
Zynga, I do. That absolutely, that's funny. Yes, my first email was a Hotmail, and I think there was a Rocket Mail too. So yeah,
I
we've come a
remember
long
where
way.
I didn't have internet at home growing up, so I would draft all my blog posts for Zanga and put them on a flash drive, and then I would bring it to the local library when my parents would take me to the library once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then I would upload it using the library computer. So that was really early days of the internet. Now we've got these little devices like our smartphones. Anyone can get connected, and anyone can share their story
True.
no matter what. So I thank you for bringing back
Yeah.
a flash of the past. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I used to go to
So,
the internet cafe. So I didn't have a computer either. So I would go down to the coffee shop and get on the computer, and that's what we did. So
and now my kids who are 2 and 3, they both have tablets, so they're
of
going to be more
course.
advanced. The
Yep. Mhm.
generation of today is going to be more advanced than we will ever be as current users. So that's something. It's
Mhm.
exciting to see what they'll do, uh, having embraced technology at a younger age. Whew.
Yeah.
So, Gina, the biggest thing want to talk to you about today, for the main purpose of of our show today, is to talk more about social media in the scientific community. We had a great discussion with Dr. Shu a couple episodes ago, and she talked about self-advocacy and how she learned it through another scientist. Like, this is something you got to do. You got to get your message out there. You got to share your scientific findings and get information out so you can get feedback and a whole other things that you can do with social media. And speed was something that we talked about. Um, so to start this conversation, can you tell me a little bit about the field that you're in, and how you're using social media in that realm?
Sure. So I work for the American Society for Investigative Pathology, which a lot of people think it's like CSI, but it's actually investigating the mechanisms of disease. So what we're a society, and we have different pathologists in different realms. So you have people that study breast cancer, biobanking, AI, digital pathology, liver disease, all of these. So they discover the diseases and also publish in journals their findings of their research. And so I started here about almost 5 years ago. And at first, it was a real challenge because a lot of the scientists are in the lab. They're not constantly on a computer, like a marketer, you're constantly on a computer, on a phone. So at first, it was a little bit of a challenge getting people to participate. But that's kind of, I was like, well, there's got to be some people who do this. And I was searching and looking, and I found Daisy, and she would post, and she had this great content. She would post amazing pictures, and I was like, oh, I've got to get. So I started communicating with her and everything like that. And really, that I think is really what got the ball rolling. We went from zero to having a strong, strong community, and actually we started doing, whenever the pandemic hit, we started doing social media sessions for scientists because we saw that there was a big need for this. People can promote their work, people can talk about their accolades, their awards, their papers. And it's a very exciting time, especially when you hashtag other institutions, people can find you. So you have this small community with these things in common that can connect with each other. So it's a very exciting time.
That's awesome. With amongst all the other platforms that you use, and some of the other scientists like Daisy that have been using, which platform have you feel that has gotten the most engagement with your audiences?
I would definitely say Twitter because it's so quick. I find that Facebook is good for kind of archival content. You know, if you want to have, if you have a lot to say. But when it comes to meetings, like every meeting is branded. Like for our upcoming meeting is ASIP 2021 at experimental biology. And so for things like that are quick, we do a lot of live tweeting. We've done several COVID seminars. And so these people who are investigating the research and COVID research and autopsies and the findings of that while the seminar is going on, we live tweet and other people discuss it. And so it kind of snowballs into a completely another discussion.
COVID is definitely popular topic, and it has been for the last
It is.
year. And I can only guess that the conversations that you have with your audience, are they normally between other scientists, or do you feel that there's also, with using Twitter, that you're able to reach to non-scientists, the everyday layperson?
Absolutely. When we started our first social media seminar was extremely successful. In fact, we have some people who joined from all over the world. We have an international community. And so we have an upcoming social media session where I'll give a shout out to Elmira later, she's got some fantastic content. They talk to each other. They talk about new things. They collaborate. So I would say it's a combination of everything. The research, awards, they lift other scientists and say, hey, congratulations for this. They say this would be a good idea to publish in the American Journal of Pathology or the Journal of Molecular Diagnostics. So it really broadens your reach as a scientist and really gets you out there, increases your visibility.
That's awesome. And sharing knowledge in any industry is important. And we find that that helps with growth. It grows the profession, and sharing knowledge just benefits everyone. And so that's awesome that your community is able to do that using social media. With some of your audiences being, is there an outreach plan to reach to talk to non-scientists for your organization? You mentioned COVID, and COVID is a large topic in itself with many different factors. We talk about vaccine, we talk about preventative measures. Is there a particular method that you're doing to talk about the research and developments that your organization is doing? And what ways are you using to bridge that gap using communication to not only scientists, but more particularly to the everyday person?
Well, one of the things we just started with, which Stacy is very involved with, is a Behind Our Science podcast where they talk about everyday science and just for layman's terms. So the content is great, and they talk about food, and they talk about where they're from and the cultures and what they do. Because I truly believe the best social, it's not just strictly business. I am a scientist and this is all I do. You're a human, and then you're a scientist. So I think the best storytelling comes from getting the overall arching themes. You know, this is what I do. So someone will post, yeah, I'll have a pipette in the lab, but they will also say, this is what I ate today. One of the things we talk about, we give gift cards for for a lot of our promotions. And so one of the conversations we have between the trainees are the different kinds of coffee. And one person had never tried a pumpkin spice latte. And so it became an entire conversation there. But our audience, we have a broad audience. We have graduate students. We have postdoctoral fellows. I've had people reach out that are in high school and say, hey, I'm interested in this. We found you on Twitter and talking about social media or talking about COVID. But there's also faculty members and primarily people who work in research, but we do get a broad audience, especially with COVID and social media. Everybody's interested in that. There's a lot of people who are afraid to ask. They want to be on social media, but they don't really know where to start. And that's where we come in. We are geared towards scientists, but I think that the lessons learned are applicable towards any field, definitely.
That's awesome. And I like how you mentioned that there's interest from high schoolers, and this might be a way for them to get into STEM in the future. A little bit about myself. There was a program out of University of California, San Francisco, called Doctors Academy that got me into the medical field. So I was a nurse first before I
Oh,
switched
wow.
over to public relations. So, but if it wasn't for that program, that wouldn't have guided me into my career path former, and actually has led me to where I am now. And so I feel that the engagement starting with high schoolers, that they're interested and they're
Mhm.
reaching out to your outlet, I think that's a great way to get them interested. Probably some Q&As and relatable content to them, and that's the gateway. And you planted those seeds, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually have when our EB is not virtual, we have a high school for teachers where the high schoolers come in and they get to play with lungs and actually hands-on different things. So that's also another workshop that's fun.
That they brought in as the cadaver, and we had to dissect it and label all the parts, and put the little pins with the flags with the numbers, and we had to match it, and then our professor would come around to see if we were doing it correctly. Oh, bringing it back memories, and the smells. So um is
Mm.
there is there a particular campaign that you've ran that as with your current organization about that you are most proud of, either of the topic or the different tactics that you use in order to reach your audience?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple. Right when the pandemic hit, we knew that we had to up our communications level because this was the only way to communicate. So it happened to coincide around April, May. So we had a group called Women in Pathology, and this turned out to be a huge success. And we've gotten we've had people from all over be interested, whether or not they're in pathology. These women come together and we do a lot of fun things. We did a Women in Pathology month where we showed the different scientists what they did, what their specialty was. And then we also had some networking, engaging things so people could get together and talk about the challenges. What do you do when you're in the lab all day and then you come home and you have to take care of the baby and then cook dinner and do all of these things. So this is something they had in common as well. And we also do some social events. I ran a Women in Pathology Jeopardy game, which was really fun. We had some scientific questions, but a lot of the people were not members of the society, so they wanted to also, talk about everything in life. We had some music trivia questions in there, so that was fun. We also did a More Than Membership campaign where we featured different members and we talked about their research or what awards they won. We also do our social media series has been extremely successful. We've brought people from all over the world and scientists, non-scientists alike, people just interested in social media. And we've got different speakers. Some do video. We have an upcoming one. Daisy did an incredible job about how to get started. We do interactive workshops for that are beginning, intermediate level, where you can go in a room and we actually are in the Zoom room and demonstrate how to do this, how to do a tweet. We give sample tweets, things like that. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, and I think
Mm-hmm.
having that social media 101 class is very applicable. I know in the last year, a lot of people have had to get get smart on
Yeah,
social, because that
yeah,
was really. And I know for me, I had to use Zoom because I was using Skype. Skype's been around for years, and
yeah.
it's just interesting in how Zoom just kind of took over the whole virtual conferencing.
It did. It did.
Gina, I want to talk about your organization's annual meeting, and I understand it's coming up soon. It's a big event. It's going to be virtual. A lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that event?
Sure. Well, this is our annual meeting. We have the hashtag ASIP 2021 at hashtag EXPBIO, which is experimental biology. And it is a multidisciplinary powerhouse meeting. It is a huge community. They have people from anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, and investigative pathology all meeting together. And it's usually in person. We do it at different locations, but this year is the first year we're going virtual, and it's April 27th through 30th. And we have a great program. There are whatever disease that you are interested in or study, there's a lot of scientific sessions, but there's also there's career development sessions. And there's a lot of storytelling in this meeting, especially since it's virtual. You have professors at all levels. You have beginning faculty, trainees, and people who don't work in academia. So it's very diverse science, very diverse sessions, a very diverse program. So there are whatever scientific life sciences discipline you choose, there is something for you at the experimental biology meeting.
Gina, I think you just stirred an idea that with virtual events being the norm, I would really like to pick your brain maybe after.
Sure.
Yeah, I know you're in the planning phases, you're working on executing. I'm thinking just later down the line, we talk about how to execute a virtual event for a large audience for something like this. This is huge.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be the norm. I personally feel it's gonna be how things will be done until it's safe enough for us to be in person. But I'm hoping that your event is a huge success, especially in the virtual world.
I think it will be.
I have one final question for you. Is we talked a lot about social media. We talked about advocacy. We talked about how you're using social media in your industry. Where do you see the use of social media in the scientific community in the future? Let me preface it this way. In the next 10 years, how do you see the scientifically embracing, leveraging, and utilizing social media?
Well, I think what you said was very accurate. I don't think that virtual is going to go away, because I think a lot of people really enjoy meeting in person, but they also enjoy a hybrid event where maybe some of the sessions they can't make it, or the day you can't make it, but you really want to see the content. There's on demand, you can watch it at your level. It's kind of like the way television has changed. We used to point a remote at a TV, and now you can watch things what you want, when you want, and personalize it. And so I think we're going to actually go in that direction. I think there's also right now, whenever you go to a meeting like experimental biology, you see a lot of posters, hanging up posters. I think we're going to see digital, maybe LCD boards, maybe more interactive, maybe more video, instead of just showing a still shot of what you caught on the microscope or what your study is. So I think that will happen. And I also think that scientists are going to realize that social media is a really, really influential tool to get your science out, to get heard, to be visible across the world, and also to connect and collaborate with others. So I think that everybody, not just scientists, I think that every single person will eventually see the use and a need for it. And to just talk, instead of emailing, just send a tweet. We do that all the time. We do that now. So I think that's here to stay. I don't think it's going away.
I like how you brought up hybrid events because I was just thinking about all the conferences, especially talking about the DC area. This DC area is huge on in-person symposiums and conferences, conventions. And I'm now thinking about when hybrid events are available in the future, and if they're done internationally, because I'm sure the medical community is an international community. We're sharing, the medical community is sharing information worldwide. Because that's how we're able to share all of our things and get different perspectives. And thinking if something's happening in Germany and someone from your team or your organization can't physically be there, but could be there virtually, technology is bridging the gap and being able to connect us all together. So despite not being in person, we can still be connected.
Yes. And it's important, especially when you're trying to help diseases like COVID, like what's happening right now. When you can connect instantly with someone, things will get faster. The vaccine is proof of that. It is.
And we have huge hopes that life will get to some type of normalcy in the future with science and using evidence-based research that we can get there.
It's coming.
Looking forward to it. Gina, how can our audience find you? A little bit more about your organization and so forth. Plug away.
Well, we are ASIP. Our main website is asip.org, and you can get to all of our journals and publications from there. We also do a WordPress website, which is like an online newsletter, up to the minute information about journals, awards, meetings, science policy. You can be a subscriber there. We are on all the social. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. ASI at ASI Path on Instagram and Twitter. You could just look up ASIP on LinkedIn. And we are on social all the time, live tweeting. And you should come to our upcoming social media webinar. It's So You Think You Can Social Science Edition.
Awesome. And then we can also find you on social too. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. I'm at Gina LaBorde one. I'm on all of them. I'm on everything. Yeah. Even TikTok.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I joked with Daisy. I joked with Daisy about getting on the TikTok and about I think she mentioned about doing a dance for one of her projects or one of her papers to how, as a creative outlet. I'm still waiting for her to pump that content out. So maybe I need a tweet her and remind her, hey, where's your TikTok?
Definitely. And next I'll try to organize a scientific karaoke. I know.
That would be fun.
Wouldn't it?
Gina, is there anything you would like to add? I've had a pleasant conversation. I think we've had an awesome discussion today. But is there anything else you would like to add?
I just want to give out some shout outs to Daisy, who's been incredible. I really love watching her. She's getting so many speaking engagements and blog posts, and so that she's at iDaisy Shoe. Also, our social media team, Andrew Duncan and Fran Carrillo, who's at Fran Carrillo, PhD, Marina, who is at Emmy_A, and Elmira. And our upcoming session is also, we have a bot, SciComm bot. So that's going to be really interesting for our upcoming social media session. So You Think You Can Social Science Edition. And Behind Our Science, the podcast, of course.
Awesome. Gina, thanks again for being on the show today, and looking forward to have that your annual meeting is a great success.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our video. If you want to learn more about WazaMedia, go to our main channel over here. And if you want to see more podcast episodes, go over here. See you next time.